Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. This is Gabrielle Celeste. I'm so excited, you guys, for the topic today. It's been something that's been in the back of my mind for probably well over a year now, so I am so excited to get into it. We're going to be talking about internal family systems today, and our guest, Chelsea Owens, is a licensed marriage and family therapist based out of Northern California. She is the co-host of the Parts and Charts podcast, is an artist, therapist, meditator, an Enneagram 4, we're going to get into that, ocean lover, and forever student. Chelsea is trained in level 3 of the internal family systems therapy, and she's also a program assistant for level 1 IFS training. She works with those who are struggling in relationships by guiding them access to their wildness, their messiness, and spirit through deepening their relationship to self and healing parts of themselves so that they can go out in the world and embody their knowing relationally with others. She brings warmth and energy to the room. I'm very curious what her big 3 are as I'm explaining this and sharing this. Her laugh is infectious, as we just noticed, and she brings a levity to situations that can sometimes feel overwhelming and heavy. Welcome to the show, Chelsea. So excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. That was such a sweet, warm welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
So happy to be here.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here. You guys, I slid into her DMs. I was like, hey girl, like, what are your thoughts? Like, would you want to come on? And when I noticed you combined it with all these other modalities, I was like, oh yes, I hope she says yes. So yeah, I'm grateful that you said yes. And I know our audience is going to love you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so happy to be here and share all of my process, my journey, what I've learned, mistakes I've made, all of it, everything. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we like to play this little game at the beginning when we have guests on, and it's a fun, like, rapid fire set of questions so we can get to know each other better. So, being familiar with astrology, what would you say is your big 3?
So Cancer Sun, Leo Moon, Leo Rising.
Oh.
So I have Cancer in the 12th, Leo, Moon rising, and Mercury as well in the first house. So I should say that I also have Mars conjunct my Sun in the 12th. So Mars is basically same degree as my Sun, which I didn't think was that important until I learned like more about what that means. But I feel honestly like I'm very Leo. I'm very like sun forward. And so I feel like more in my adult years, and now since I've learned so much about astrology, I just kind of consider myself a Leo. Like I kind of forget that I'm a Cancer sometimes.
Well, maybe your Cancer is what positions you to be so familiar and like adaptable with all of the modalities that you practice.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so cool. Oh, I love that. Okay, well, what's your human design?
So I'm a 6-2 generator. So 6-2 is called I think it's one interpretation is like the exemplary human, which I'm like, okay, I'll take that. But I've also heard like something about a hermit, like I don't know, some kind of healthy hermit. So
yeah, it gives me teacher energy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Okay,
I feel
amazing. That. I feel like that's on brand for your makeup, so that's really cool.
Totally.
What would you say are some of the like maybe audiobooks, podcasts, media? What are you consuming at this time?
Ooh, right now, that's a good question. I haven't been listening to that many podcasts lately. I don't know what that's about. I used to just be so into podcasts because I do a lot of multitasking. So I love having like my audiobooks, my podcasts, like something that I have in my ear at all times while I'm cooking or cleaning or collaging. I guess I've been doing more audiobooks. So I've been doing some memoirs, reading Lindy West's new memoir right now. And I just got a bunch of new books from the library. So I've been doing a lot of library books. Trying to get more into fiction. I'm doing a little bit of fiction. There's a really cool Polish writer. I probably can't pronounce her last name. Her name is Olga. Her last name starts with a T. I'll have to look it up. But she is a super cool woman. I just read her book called Drive Over, I think it's called Drive Over the Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. I think that's what it's called.
Mm,
And she weaves in a lot of astrology. And
cool.
that book is kind of like a whodunit. It's a little dark, but has a ton of astrology in there. I'm guessing she also studies astrology. So I really loved
Hmm.
that book. And what else? I mean, I've just been doing a lot of art. I pretty much hunker down. Like, it's very 12th house of me. I have my like art station set up in my house. So I'll have like my collage table, my art, like my watercolor table, my like knitting corner. And I just kind of move throughout my house and do my little arts and crafts. So sometimes I'll put on a show. What am I watching? I'm kind of watching Love Story right now,
Hmm.
the JFK Jr.
Oh
Carolyn
yeah.
Bessette story, which I know isn't factual, but I'm still like binging it because I feel nostalgic for the 90s right now.
Yeah.
So I'll put on, yeah, anything 90s or yeah, any like comfort show really. I'll just kind of have that on in the background as I'm like
Nice.
crafting or sewing or collaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
your artistry, it sounds like it plays a big
Mhm.
role in your work, which I'm excited to get
Yeah,
into how you've weaved it all together. Okay, so two more questions.
yeah.
So, if you could work with any person, living or deceased, in the context of your practice, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Ooh, that's a great question.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, probably I have too many answers, I'm sure, but what came to me immediately was like working with um some of the like more spiritual artists of the like 18th, 19th century.
Mm,
Like Hilma of Klimt, and Leonora Carrington, like some of those like witchy women who were channeling art um, long before any of us were doing that. So I
mhm.
think I would work with them because I think that'd be really, really fascinating stuff. Because I mean, just looking at their art, I'm like, wow, they were tapping in to source, like they were tapping into something, and
Mhm.
I wonder what that was like at that time, right? Because it was
Mhm.
a time when no one was really, I mean, people were doing that, but there were no words for it and it wasn't really allowed. And
Yeah.
like, were they also dealing with, I don't know, yeah, just like psychological, issues as well. And because, we didn't have the kind of psychological terms for what was, what they're doing, and what was
Mhm.
going on for them, that like they probably were just called crazy, right? Like for channeling art back then. So I would definitely be so curious about working with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I have to look into them. I've not heard of them. So, yeah, I'm like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
they sound interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question
Yeah.
in terms of the rapid fire.
Yeah.
Who, for living or past artist, whose concert would you attend if you had the opportunity to, and why?
Oh. Oh wow. Living, yeah, I guess, I mean, there's not that many living artists that I'm like dying to see right now, which is kind of, I think it's because like concerts are so expensive these days that I'm
They
like,
are.
oh, like I would love to see David Byrne. He's going to be in my area this week, and tickets were like at least $150. And I'm like, I just don't know if I want to do that. Um,
Yeah.
but okay, so maybe someone deceased. Uh, I think I'd love to see David Bowie again. Um,
Oh, that's a good
It's
answer.
like, yeah, like that kind of came to me first. Like, miss him. I miss him. And
Yeah.
like that would be like, but like in the, 70s or 80s. Like I wish I could go back to that time and be
Hmm.
around and go see him live. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. I don't know that we've had that. We might have once or twice, but it's not
Yeah.
as a common answer as like Taylor Swift is as of late.
Yeah.
So I love that. He's an icon. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so I just want to get into IFS, what it is, how you got into it,
Yeah.
all the things, because it feels like it's a very nuanced
Yeah.
area of this work. And also, thank you for sharing those answers. I love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And yeah, just what your take on IFS is and how it can help
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, so IFS is I'll kind of break it down for folks who haven't really heard of it at all. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a therapeutic modality, just like other therapeutic modalities that are popular, like cognitive behavioral therapy or just like psychoanalytic theory. So there's a lot of different types of therapy out there. They're all great. They all have something to offer. I personally believe this is the one for me and the one that I have found the most efficacy, if I want to be really clinical, like the most success, both personally and with my clients. Like it really feels life changing and like changing for my practice because
Mm-hmm.
it's, without sounding like too much like, I don't know, like I'm drinking the Kool Aid or something. Like it, I didn't start out practicing IFS. Um, I came to it through my own therapy. I think it was like 2018. I just went to a new therapist and had no idea like how she practiced. And I think our first session we were doing IFS, like which is it can look like a very internal process. Like she didn't ask me to close my eyes. I just kind of naturally did, which happens a lot with this work because it's so internal. And for me, just closing my eyes helps me just deepen into like what's actually going on inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I closed my eyes and she was kind of leading me through it. I mean, almost like a guided meditation, but not really because I was super conscious and I'm dialoguing with this part of me. Like she's asking me about this specific part of me. And I even think in our first session, we went through like a whole, like what we call unburdening process where a part of me like gave up this, like burden that I've been holding forever. And we gave it up to the water. Like it was very esoteric. And
Mm-hmm.
after our first session, I was just like, what the hell was that? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a trained therapist and I didn't even know what my therapist was doing. And then eventually I caught on and I was like, oh, she's doing internal family systems. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
heard about it, but I had no idea like what it actually looked like in practice. I just knew that it was kind of popular and people were talking about it, but not until I actually experienced it, like in my own body, did I
Mm-hmm.
really grasp like what it's like. And I think that's the most important part. Like I could talk about IFS and explain it all day, but and you can kind of grasp those concepts intellectually, but I truly think like in experiencing it for yourself in your own body is when you kind of it starts to actually click.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's a therapeutic modality.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around for, I don't know, probably around like since the 80s ish, 80s, 90s, when it started to like gain a little bit more popularity, but not until like maybe 2020 is kind of when it really blew up. And I just feel like during COVID, yeah, I don't know what it was that kind of made everyone start to hear about it, or it just started to trend a little bit. And now I feel like everyone's hearing about it in different spaces, or different celebrities are talking about it. Um, but yeah, um, how do I even explain it? So it's based on the core belief that we're all made up of parts,
Mm-hmm.
um, which can sound like I don't know. I guess some people can be a little bit afraid of hearing that, like oh, like this multiplicity idea, um, because we have that maybe like worry that that if we're multiples, like I'm gonna go crazy, or just having multiple voices inside of our heads like means there's something wrong with us, right? And it's so not true because once you actually tune into that, like you're hearing multiple voices inside of you all day, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
often that you'll hear somebody say like, oh, part of me really wants to eat breakfast right now, and another part of
Mm-hmm.
me doesn't want to eat breakfast. Like there's always lots of different things going on inside of us. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really just a practice of tuning in to hearing what that is, what they are, who they are, what they're doing inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of these little parts, these little sacred beings, they can carry a thought, an emotion, Um, they're maybe doing a role, doing a job for you. Sometimes they get pushed into a more extreme role or position inside where they're, having to really defend you against something scary, right? They're trying to protect you from something bad happening.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's some parts of us that are really vulnerable and tender and young that can get exiled away and like really locked deep down inside. And other parts of us um, can like formulate in it to make sure that those parts don't get out, to make sure that those parts don't become further wounded. Um, so a part of IFS is just to, I mean, to like develop relationship from your like higher self, like big S self,
Mhm.
to each of your parts. So
Mhm.
developing that connection is so important. Hearing what your parts have to say, just paying attention to them. Um, and then slowly through that process, which there's a whole like process to it, a whole model to it,
Mhm.
a protocol that we follow of
Mhm.
getting to know those parts and working with them. And through that, if a part is in a more extreme role,
Mhm.
um, whatever that may be, you find out like they may not even want to be in that role anymore.
Mm.
They may be tired of doing it. It may be scary to let go of it, but maybe they're ready, after a while to transform, to do a different thing for you, to be in a different role.
So I have a question. Can
Yeah.
you is this like maybe like speak to the model if you don't mind? Because the way that I was understanding it, it feels like and I maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but maybe there's a somatic aspect to it, or is it almost
Yeah.
kind of like taking an observer role and positioning yourself as like understanding your consciousness from a place of like, what is this emotion bringing up for me, and so forth, and
Mm.
unpacking the different parts. I'm very curious how you break it down in a
Yeah.
session.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up because I truly believe that it is a very somatic practice. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's also a lot of really specifically somatic practices out there um in the in the psychology world, but I really do think that this is a somatic practice in the way that um you are really tuning into the body for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
I do believe all the parts live somewhere in the body.
Mm-hmm.
Um And some people can be so disconnected from that that it's hard to even notice. And sometimes parts don't always show up somatically. Like we usually ask, are you feeling that, in or around your body anywhere? Do you notice any sensations? And a lot of my clients notice a lot of that. And we'll start there. Usually we'll start with, oh my gosh, like this tension in my neck. And, we'll really
Mm.
get into like how that's showing up somatically and really staying with the feeling of that, what
Mhm.
the sensations are, and working with that. And then from
Mm.
there, it really develops into like, oh, we find out, wait, there's way more to it than just like, oh, it's a pain in my neck. And
Mm.
I think Dick Schwartz, he's the founder of the model, like he often says, parts definitely can show up somatically or with a physical symptom.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not like, oh, that physical symptom, like, um, it'll just be solved. All my medical or physical symptoms will just go away by doing IFS. That may not be true, but I have seen a lot of reduction in pain or like, all
Mm.
these physical symptoms because, I think parts are just trying to get our attention. Like, so however they're going to get your attention, they're going to make your back hurt or they're going to, make your asthma flare up. Like whatever it is, that that feeling may already be there. Like the physical symptom may already be there mildly, but they're just going
Mhm.
to amp it up. They're going to like ramp that feeling up to like a 10 to really get your attention. And maybe there is some trauma there. Maybe there is, something else emotionally attached to it. And yeah, I found that once you can like really be with that and address it and work with it,
Mhm.
sometimes like they don't have to ramp up those physical symptoms as much. Yeah.
It feels like it's it sounds like a softer approach, I would say, in order to kind of like tap into feel your feelings and what those feelings and maybe physical feelings at that might be trying to express to you.
Yeah. Right.
I'm curious, is there like a common IFS part per se that you see in most people? And
Mm.
is there any, I guess, like maybe cues that you would suggest for one to pay
Mhm.
attention to so that they can recognize those parts within themselves?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many. That and I should probably make more of a list like of my own and what I see in
Yeah.
my practice. I mean, so there's categories too. Like I don't want to get too boring here, but or too theoretical, but there's manager parts and there's
Mm,
firefighter parts. So they're both protecting you.
mhm,
And then there's the exile parts, like I said. But I think common manager parts and common firefighter parts, like, yeah, I want to say like there's a lot of universality with that. Like, um, I see like a lot of, perfectionist parts. They're managing, a lot. And so perfectionist, but also like maybe self-critical parts. So they'll kind of, I don't know, nag at you like to get something done. Like you're not being productive enough, like they're kind of trying to like light a fire under your butt so that you don't fall behind on your work. Or I just see this come up a lot with clients who are like just really hard on themselves at work or with their job, or so worried about getting doing something wrong at work, or so worried about mistakes or like getting fired. So there's a lot of common parts that are just so worried that, yeah, you're not going to have a job, and if you don't have a job, everything falls apart, or everyone will
mhm,
leave you, or you'll be totally
mhm,
alone or on the street. So I do see, yeah, I'd probably say the most like self-critical, like perfectionist parts who are just like really kind of type A managers.
mhm,
And yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna guess like a lot of that probably shows up in the head.
mhm.
But like I think more anxious parts probably show up in the stomach. At least that's true for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, um, yeah, worry, maybe worry about work or worry about something falling through the cracks, or, worry about where I feel like a lot of worry just is all circulated around the stomach area, especially for women. So
Yeah.
that's what I see a lot of. Yeah.
So, are there just only 3 different categories? You said firefighter, protector, and then I think you said exile?
Yeah, so like the protector parts are
Mhm.
so there's like umbrella of protectors, and they can be managers or they can be firefighters. So they're both
Mm.
protecting. Um, and then the exiles are like the vulnerable ones that are really like hidden away. And an
Mm.
example of firefighter. So firefighters, just like their name, they're purpose is to kind of put out the fire, and the fire is maybe an emotion, right? So they come in real quick. If they think the exile parts are going to be too vulnerable or be exposed. So if like, let's say if some exiles feeling a lot of shame, that's kind of a big one for a lot of exile parts. Like shame feels awful and no one wants to feel that. And firefighters are so good, they're so clever at making sure that you don't feel shame, that shameful part doesn't get seen or wounded further.
Mhm.
So firefighter parts will come in like when there's any when you even get a little close to maybe feeling a little bit of that shame.
Mhm.
um and just like a firefighter, they're going to come in, try to put out that fire by doing whatever it is that they have determined is going to be helpful, to do that. So sometimes they will. We kind of often give the example that they will be a little destructive,
Mhm.
like destructive in the way that it could look like a behavior, like substance use or abuse,
Mhm.
like so maybe drinking or using something to just numb that pain out. It could be like shopping a lot
Mm,
or scrolling on your phone. Anything that is maybe a little bit addictive, even.
mhm,
Um, just to kind of take you completely out of that feeling. So anything
mm,
that could maybe numb you out a little bit. But you know
yeah.
what? They could also be doing something that looks positive, like meditating, or like meditating to the point that you're completely dissociating from reality, right? Or that you're kind of bypassing all your feelings.
Mhm.
Um, so that, yeah, they're doing what they're doing. I love them, but sometimes people don't love them because they can do some really, like, quote unquote destructive stuff, or they can look like they're not helping you. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing to take away, is that all your parts are, like, they truly believe they're trying to help you, even if it looks like they're doing something destructive. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess a question, and that's helpful too. Like I'm painting like a picture of my third eye of like just how I'm like looking at hierarchies, I guess,
Yeah.
in terms of like understanding the IFS process. So what
Yeah.
would you say is a small way, like or just a way, a beginner friendly, um, like someone who's not new to IFS like me, or who is new to IFS, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
can start working with their parts on their own?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you could work with a practitioner, that would be like the ideal. But if that's not a possibility, I think just tuning into and just noticing, like, these different parts as parts, right? Like, and just noticing, like,
Mhm.
your different thoughts, your different, like, sensations that are coming up in the body, and being curious about that.
Mhm.
And I think before even noticing them as parts, really, um, doing what you can to develop as much self energy as you
Mm.
can. Like, I think a big, maybe one of the most important parts of the work with IFS is increasing your access to self energy. So, capital S self. Um, I think every tradition or even religion has their own word for the energy that I'm describing. But it's like tapping into your higher self. It's tapping into,
Okay.
to me, source, right? Um, like, we have these C qualities to kind of give words to it, even though I think it's much more than words. Can't really even describe what I'm talking about, which is why it's so hard to describe it. But we have these C qualities like calm, creative, courageous, connected. So we try to help people to somewhat get a sense of, like, what that essence feels like, and I'm sure you felt that before. And I think spiritual folks probably tap into this feeling a lot more than we really kind of are aware of. Um, and so that's a huge part of IFS, and that doesn't feel unique or new to 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 IFS or to discourse at all. Like, there's lots of traditions that have been doing this type of thing for a long, long time, and um, I think IFS is just kind of giving it a little bit of clinical language and
Mhm.
bringing all of those beautiful, like, spiritual practices into the therapy room. And I'm so grateful for that, because it really does feel like such a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
So you're probably doing a lot of that already in whatever spiritual practice you have, like even meditation, right? And so even throughout meditation, like, just being able to notice your body, right? Noticing this and that, like, this thought is that, what's it telling me? It's telling me to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm gonna get curious about that. Like, what is that, and what's it afraid? What happened if I didn't do that?
Can I ask a question to clarify? So would you
Yeah,
say the capital S is that source consciousness and then little s would be like us in human form?
I mean, that's how I look at it.
Mhm.
I that I mean, that's probably how Dick Schwartz would look at it too. Um,
Mhm.
I think source is probably the easiest. Like, I don't know,
description.
term to yeah, like
Yeah,
it's that kind of ineffable quality that like that's yeah, it's just hard to describe and it's you feel it more than like you probably have words to describe it, you know?
totally. So, can people get rid of certain parts? Like, what does that process of maybe transmuting the
Yeah.
exile or protector or firefighter look like?
Right. Yeah, it we don't want to get rid of parts. But
Okay,
parts
good to
can
know.
change like right. But parts can change what they're doing. So I think it's important to know that that parts aren't their job. And
Okay.
I think sometimes parts don't even know that. So helping them understand because sometimes parts can get so much hate from like other people or other parts for what they're doing and they're so misunderstood.
Hmm.
And they can often be like equated with like what they're doing, you know, the part of me that is addicted to something probably would get a lot of hate
Hmm.
um, or disgust in the system because it's doing something that other people don't like. But it's actually it's its own being and it's much more than just what it's doing.
Hmm.
So they can be transformed. They can through the process of working mostly with a practitioner, um, they can release like the burden that they're carrying. So most parts are carrying some kind of burden that maybe they picked up a long time ago or when you were younger, you know, if something traumatic happened and they developed a really intense belief about
Hmm.
you or about the world, and they've been carrying that. And there is hope that, you know, through this whole process that those parts can unload that burden um, and then kind of bring in new qualities like I'm going to bring in more creativity or play or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
there'll still be parts of you in the system. They might just be doing something else. Um, yeah.
Can I ask if this work is, I mean, I guess none of this work is quick, but is this work, would you say, like quick, working particularly with the IFS approach?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on the person. Like, I want to say, like, most clients probably come in and it it could take a while. Like it really depends on the parts and how open they are to this process. And I love skeptical parts. So like often they'll show up and they're like, "What the heck are we doing? Like I don't even know you yet. Like I'm not going to give you the keys to the system." So it really depends on parts um, and the readiness too. So, you know, sometimes people think it's a good time for therapy and they'll be like, all right, this is it. We're gonna make so
Hmm.
much change. And then they get there and they're like, oop, like
Yeah,
it's not the right time. But like, you know,
definitely.
I came in, yeah, when I started with my therapist, I think it's just because my system was so open and ready, like, and I had a lot of access to my own self energy that like the work went really fast for me.
Mm,
But I think that's just because of my system and the readiness and my self energy that was present that I was just like my parts were just so ready for it and yeah so it went pretty fast for me
mhm,
um but yeah that's not always the case and if that's not the case that's totally fine too but I think some practitioners can and clients can get a little impatient with that process because you really are just trying to go at the speed of trust like trust of the client's system and
mhm.
some parts, you know, of course, want that to go faster. And so slowing down is always a thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, some people don't like it and they're like, I just want to feel better. And I'm like, I get it. Or like, when is this going to feel better? When am I going to notice more change? And it's frustrating, but
Yeah, it
yeah,
is.
yeah, it's really just like a matter of yeah, the parts trusting and making sure that they feel safe and heard and
Mhm.
understood.
So, what would you say are maybe some of like, so like, say if I were to tap in and if I'm tapping into my feeling of, let's go with not enoughness, because that's something I'm maybe working on right now. I mean, I am.
Yeah.
I've done some work with it, right? So, what would be maybe like a pitfall or a common mistake I would find myself
Mm.
potentially making from the IFS approach?
Hmm. Um, yeah. Good question. Like if you were working with a practitioner
Yeah.
or just
Hmm.
on your own?
Either, but yes, with the IFS in mind.
Yeah. I don't even know if they're I don't know. It's hard to answer that because I believe so strongly in the model that
Hmm.
I feel like there aren't really any mistakes that you could make.
Oh, okay.
And maybe that's like me being too positive, but I just feel like what I love about IFS is that even if I as the practitioner like um like maybe say I have my own agenda of what I think should happen, or I like push a part too much, let's say, and it's not ready. Like if something
Hmm.
like that happens, or even if I say something that doesn't land, like if I
Hmm.
say a word and a part's like, oh, I didn't like that word, um, parts will like always correct that. Like
Hmm.
the system always knows how to like recalibrate, and everything is more learning. So even if a part like makes a mistake or like something happens, it gets triggered, or a part triggers another part. Um, even if some kind of rupture happens, even between client and therapist, like everything is repairable and everything is learning. So,
Hmm.
if something like, I guess a part will always let me know about something that's coming up and we'll work with it. So even if something kind of bad happens or like, um, yeah, a part gets triggered or doesn't like me, like
Hmm.
everything is self correcting. So like they'll correct me and we'll repair it. Or um, it's just parts are always going to give the client information about what's going on inside of them. And as long as the client has a lot of access to self to be with that part and whatever it's feeling or sharing or experiencing, parts will start to like, I mean, they'll start to heal, but they'll soften and they'll be like, oh, okay. Like, thank
Hmm.
you. Like, you heard what I was saying. And now I don't have to freak out. Or like, now I'm cool. I'm going to just sit here.
Hmm.
So even if yeah, does that kind of make sense? Like,
Yeah, it does. I guess how would you know that what's like the barometer for just feedback in terms of you're seeing that a part is starting to heal? So what's like, how do you know
mm,
that you're making progress?
yeah, I think if clients first, if clients notice that, if something feels a little bit lighter or easier,
Mm,
um, like they'll definitely let me know. So like if something just feels, internally, somatically, just like, oh, that, I thought about my ex-boyfriend and like I felt okay, or like something like that.
yeah.
Well, like, they're just gonna start to notice like just a little bit more lighter in the system. Um, And I think I start to notice it more if I just feel more of their own self energy present in the session, and
Hmm.
maybe not as much like just what we call blending. Like if you're really blended with a part, like that means you're kind of speaking from the part. Like if you're maybe like really angry, like I'm gonna feel that part. Like I'm gonna feel that angry part, and it's obvious that it's there and it's speaking.
Hmm.
But when I start to see a little bit more progression or a little bit more unblending, I can notice when clients are speaking more from or for a part, not from a part.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they're speaking like, oh, my angry part was blah, 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 blah. It felt this way. And I just start to notice more of their like higher self energy coming through. And like, honestly, you can feel it. Like, you can really
Yeah.
feel that present in the session. So it feels very like I can intuitively kind of notice when there are shifts, even if they're not saying that, because it
Hmm.
just feels different in my body to sit there with them. And I'm like, oh, something's happening here. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, usually I feel like clients will pretty much be like, they're going to celebrate, most of their wins and be like, "Oh, like this felt good," or this, they're probably going to tell me most of the time when they're
Hmm.
feeling changes and shifts.
Hmm.
Or their parts are going to let me know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as we come to an end, what would you say is the most beneficial thing about the IFS system that one could take into consideration before utilizing it with a practitioner or themselves?
Yeah. I think just like I said, like having access to self energy. And for me, that's like having a spiritual practice, in that, connection to my higher self, connection to, I don't know, the oneness, if I want to get really
Hmm.
metaphysical. So, um, yeah, I feel like that's like a key element, like maybe the most important element. Um, and that can be something that you can really do on your own too. Like, you don't have to do that with a practitioner. Um, and yeah, I feel like that's going to open up hopefully a lot of doors when, like, once you have access to that. I feel like there's a lot more space inside to work with your parts, to notice your parts as parts, and then kind
Hmm.
of go from there and have the space to be like, oh, this part of me is really wanting, to yell at me for not getting my work done today. Like, what's that
Hmm.
about? Just to have as, a little bit of space and perspective to
Yeah.
see that as a part and not be like just totally in it, just have it completely take you over and take you out.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, having the higher self energy really allows like way more space.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I prior to this episode, I really did not know much about IFS, and that's why I was like, I am so curious as
Yeah.
to yeah, just how this all works, and it
Yeah,
feels very internal, like internally focused, so you can really try
for
to
sure.
understand. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the idiom "as within, so without," and yeah, I just
Yeah.
really appreciate your time, and would love to
Yeah.
know where the audience can find you before we do our card pull to wrap up
Yeah.
the episode. But yeah, I'm just so
Yes.
grateful. And also everyone make sure to listen to Parts and Charts because her and her co-host KP, they blend IFS and astrology. And I just think that's so
Yeah.
unique and cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can find me on our podcast, Parts and Charts. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Make Space Therapy. That's my therapy Instagram. And then Parts and Charts is our therapy, our podcast IG. And yeah, my website, I can link that too. Yeah. So if you need an IFS therapist, if you're in California, you can hit me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything will be in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. So yeah, please tell us what card deck you're pulling from as well as we close out for a
You
final
know,
message.
just my Rider Waite, just
There you
the
go.
old
The OG.
classic.
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's the one I learned on, and I still pull from it every once in a while. But I have tarot decks all over my house, so this one's right next to my computer where I work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I just pull one card?
Yeah. And whatever
Okay.
message comes forth.
Alrighty. Let's see. Ooh, judgment.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh, okay. I don't get this one very often. But that feels kind of like a rebirth moment.
Mm,
But that also kind of feels like self energy to me too.
mm,
Um, like, yeah, like higher self qualities.
yeah.
Like, and um, yeah, because it's like, not like a judgment, not as a punishment, but as a like softening towards, right, of everything that's just like trying to get your attention, like our little parts, just trying to get noticed and get help.
It it literally it's like everyone in the picture looking up to a higher form of consciousness, archangel,
Yeah.
divine source, however it's depicted, and a lot of the
Yeah.
tarot decks have a similar image for that
Yeah.
specific
Right.
card. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like that's on brand.
Love that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea. We appreciate
Thank
you,
you.
and
Thank you
thank
so
you for
much.
coming on today. And We will see you in the next one.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.